Hi, my name is Steve Pinkett. I'm a researcher at the Paris Museum Archives here in Paris. You might have noticed over the last year the downtown has gone through quite a few changes, uncovering some of the deep history of the town. Underneath the streets lies an important part of history, the mill races. During the 18th and 19th centuries, mill races were a common source of water power that was a man-made mill race that brought water from a river or creek to a water wheel that powered mills. With the two rivers, important deposits of gypsums were discovered on the banks of the river. Paris became an industrial hub, and that industry was driven by the mill races. Paris wouldn't have existed the way we see it today if it wasn't for discovering of deposits of gypsums in the riverbanks, and particularly here, right on the forks on the Nith there. But it all started with plaster. And we're going to look at key buildings that exist today, key buildings that are gone, and how they influence the downtown. It would only be fitting to start our visionary look of Paris with what we're seeing behind me, which was called originally Smith's Creek. Today we call it the Nith River. The reasoning why Paris started, and that would have been because of the mill race of William Home. We have to go back to 1790s. Augustus Jones, who was the deputy land surveyor, discovered deposits of gypsums on the banks of the river. By 1824, William and Christopher Home dug out a shallow mill race and built a gypsum mill or a plaster mill west side of the Grand River. A little later on, the gypsum started to be used as plaster of Paris, and that's where the name Paris came about. It wasn't until Hiram Capron took a good interest in the mill, and he made an offer to William Home to buy it. It was a source of water power, started here on Smith's Creek and diverted straight through town and into the Grand River. The Smith's Creek and the Grand were excellent sources of power, and the fall of the water, it produced the power in regards to a water wheel. The location we are right now is directly behind the Bank of Montreal. This was the actual location of the first industrial or commercial building in the downtown core. This is the first plaster mill of William Home. 1829, Hiram Capron took possession of it and immediately added to the existing mill. There was nothing else here. There was no streets, there was nothing. The swamp would still be there. He came down and he had the whole downtown core surveyed. He obviously had a vision as what he wanted to do. Dug in another mill race. By about 1834, we had at least a half a dozen or more industries pulling water from this mill race. The tannery, of course, a sawmill. Blacksmith shop. Hiram Capron built up to 70 small structures throughout. Directly in front of us now was the mill race and ran up on Mechanic Street up to Broadway Street. At one given time in the downtown Paris, there were 8 bridges. One of the very first ones, we believe, was at the crosswalk. By that time, a plaster mill and a grits mill were operating right where the Paris Wincy mill is here today. And across the road where the parking lot is, a machine shop, a carriage shop eventually. So the buildings got reused, repurposed. East side of Broadway Street. That is actually following the mill race over on West River Street. It came through here and slightly started to turn and curve and went down towards the Nith River. Upper Town became basically the place you wanted to live. That's where a lot of the shops were. All the first churches ever built were all in Upper Town. From this corner down, basically down to the corner of Grand River Street, that was all comprised of machine shops, foundries, and blacksmith shops. The mill race that Hiram Capron cut in shortly after arriving ran right down where those cars are parked and came straight through here. So the industry was actually growing. People were coming in, professionals were coming in. They formed the village of Paris, January of 1850. The main mill race would have been just up there, just the south of that tree. It turned to the right and started to travel parallel up towards William Street. Every mill had to have a tail race. So what went into the mill got used or dispensed drop and had to from there go back to the Grand River. The first mill race dug in 1824, and it was actually closed in 1960. I mean, it's what started Paris.